All right, everyone. Hello. Welcome to Court of the Rings on Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook. We're live every Friday, noon to 1 Eastern on Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook. Doing some Q&A this week. Otherwise, hanging out in Lotra. We have the latest news. We have plenty of time for your questions during the show as well. But today, like I said, we got something special going on because we have our executive producer, Severlin, here to join us to do a Q&A with you and the community. So say hello, Sev.
Hey, how you doing? I don't know that I would say special. I mean, I've done a number of these, so let's not over exaggerate here.
Yeah, that's true. It's just a place really to give everyone a chance. So we're heading into Gundabad on November 10th, and so we're putting the final touches on Update 31. So it's a good time to really just have you here to answer whatever questions the community might have. Maybe look ahead a little bit to Gundabad and beyond, and just sort of make you available for whoever might want to say hi. Like, we got Nicole from Germany over on Facebook. Hello, Nicole, Christopher, Eileen, and Matt. Over on Twitch, we've got Ibed and Adrithian, Blossomberry, and a whole bunch more folks. And then over on YouTube, Ybear, Meredith, and Dyrune. Nice to see everyone here. We did take a couple of questions from the forums, so why don't we just kind of get right to it and start putting together, put a few of these questions into our chat. Let me, I'm going to copy them into a notepad here so that hopefully everyone can see them on the screen. And let me get that up and running. So the first question actually comes from Askelin, who asks, is there any interest in bringing back the Bombadil PvP tournament server event? That was something we did in, it wasn't this year, right? Or was it this year? I can't even remember what year it was. This year or 2020, whichever year that was now, where we had a PvP server for Bombadil. We're going to be bringing it back.
Yeah, I mean, I'd love to, once we're past Gundabad and looking for more events to do in the next year, that can be a cool place to have a festival-like feeling, and so that would be something. My only thing is that we have to make sure that Brawler kicks ass on it, because it would be a shame because right now Brawler is a little low on DPS, so we want to make sure that that's all gets shored up for any PvP, because like punching your enemies in the head would be super satisfying, I think.
It would. It would indeed. All right.
Someone on Twitch asked, hey Seb, with the hiring of Ranania, are you now completely redundant? My secret is I've always been completely redundant, let's be clear.
Yeah. But no, what it does, though, I think, actually, is also free you up to do the executive producer work that you had been doing, really dual roles of both producer and executive producer in some cases here. So, it's more aligning kind of the workflow, as it were, as much as anything. But,
right.
Yeah.
I'm still in all the meetings.
Yeah.
Maybe even too many. Maybe even the team is like, oh my God, stop coming to meetings. So.
All right, I'm going to have to lower the text on this one. This one has a little bit of kind of negative connotation, but I'm just going to include it anyway. Adding more resources for the legendary worlds. The VIP-only servers, this person wants to get a little bit more attention, like unlocking the higher tier versions of available instances on the legendary servers. We've said that they are locked to tier 1 until we hit the level cap on the legendary worlds. This person would like to see that happen sooner, essentially. They'd also like to see separate itemization for the legendary worlds along with PVMP. Do you want to tackle any or all three of those?
Well, if it's something that... So for the legendary servers, if it's something that already exists, like our policy is we're going to hold off on the tiered instances, but the tiered instances existed on live, I think that is something that we can discuss, right? Like we can kind of go into that. If it is going to require our systems team to go and re-itemize things that we weren't planning on re-itemizing, that's just going to be too expensive for the team of this size.
Yeah.
I wish I had more people, but like the reality is that, the team kicks ass, but they're very small. So going and itemizing, re-itemizing for that. Now, one of the things we have done is we've gone through the early times and done some re-itemization, because that stuff was, how can I put it, kindly, crufty. You know what I mean? Like it hadn't been touched for a long time. But something like our more recent content, that itemization should be more up to the design standards. But for tiers, if we are not doing it, I'll have to look. There may be an actual tech reason.
Yeah.
Or, you know, so I'm sure that the systems team, one of the only issues we're going to have right now is that when you're going to ask for cool system stuff, the systems team is working so hard and so many hours on both the Gundabad stuff we've already released and the Gundabad stuff coming up, that that's something that I wouldn't approach them on until after they've got Gundabad out, you know, done whatever balance after that and got some good vacation in.
We've also just started doing our legendary item rollout as well. So I mean, obviously a lot is with 30.3 and 31 here, but there's a lot of LI work that's going to be involved as well.
Yeah.
Next question comes, again, I'm just going to tear through some of these forum questions. This is from Vroomy. This is maybe a little less of a question and more of a wish list item. But now that we have a token boosting universal toolkit, that's a universal toolkit with the Gundabad expansions that, you know, boost some of your currency acquisition. What about making an XP disabling version of it? We have the Stone of the Tortoise that, you know, can take that slot, but it doesn't offer the other benefits of a universal toolkit.
I mean, I think that's a great idea. One that I personally, being more goal-oriented gamer, would never have thought of.
It's a good one.
Like turning off, you know what I mean? Turning off XP is something that I'm not. So that is something that we can look at. That's probably the kind of stuff that we can bring up to, to the team after Gundabad.
All right. Let's take Bell Navarre's question here from Twitch. Will we see a new hobby added in the foreseeable future? A while ago we talked about golf. Well, I don't know if we talked about golf. Somebody talked about golf.
I don't think we ever talked about golf.
I mean, I know we've talked about it internally, but, you know,
I'd love to see new hobbies. We've been looking for a way to put in a couple of things that the team want to do. We have two in mind that we want to bring in. I don't want to talk about it specifically, but one will be very lore intensive, and the other one will maybe involve finding rare birds and adding them to a collection.
Yeah. Okay.
Jeez.
This one is from Soft Snake GR, wanting to know a little bit about the future of traceries. Are we going to have more efficient ways to farm gold traceries in the 140 era? Or, I'm not quite sure, or Sarasuma will be the case. I'm not quite sure what that last bit means, but essentially, what's the plan for farming gold traceries as we get into level 140? I know that we have the reward track, maybe, right?
Right. Let's go over basically the general design of traceries, so we're all on the same page. The base design of LIs should be relatively simple, and then have layers of complexity in order to solve potential problems. You come to a new area, you gather a whole bunch of traceries, you put them in the slots of your legendary item. So one of the things is, right now there may be some holes as you level that we have to fill in, that it's hard to go through and get the itemization exactly right in every tier. But what should happen is you come to a new area, and let's say that your LI is behind. You come to a new area, you start getting new traceries. Those traceries should be relevant, like to when you load those traceries in, you don't have to go back. You shouldn't have to go back and do old content again, because those traceries will take over, you know, the traceries that you had previously. So when you go into Gundabad, you'll have Gundabad level traceries that you're doing. Then you move to the dungeons and get cooler traceries in the dungeons. You move to the raid, you get cooler traceries in the raid. You'll get cooler traceries in certain chests in areas. You'll be able to hopefully eventually craft traceries. I don't think that that's in yet for Gundabad, because we can only do so much. So the acquisition of traceries should come from many sources. And then once you do that, within the course of that sort of level band, you level up your traceries and you get ready to do dungeons, you get ready to do raids, you get ready to do content, maybe a little more difficult landscape content when that comes to live servers. So all of that stuff should naturally progress. one of the big advantages of the LI system currently is before, let's say that you stop playing at level 50, now you have to bring your LI up from 50 to 120. But if in this new system, if you're at 120 and your LI traceries are behind, as the new traceries drop, they replace entirely the old one, and you don't have to go back and do old content to do that. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So if there are holes that you want to give feedback on our test servers to identify the holes, so that at Post-Gundabad we can go and shore those up, so that because we want the leveling experience to feel good the entire way up. But those holes shouldn't affect people at the end game.
Yeah. All right. Mr. Midget Overass on Twitch, what will be done with Evernight concerning lag?
So right now we're open. We are constantly looking at lag. We have made some new adjustments for lag on Arkenstone and Landroval, because we wanted to test a big server and a small server. The feedback on those two it didn't hurt. Some anecdotal evidence was that it seemed to be better, but it'll take a while for us to figure that out. If that goes well, we're going to start putting those changes, those configuration changes on the other servers. In the meanwhile, we really need to do a pass on the effects system to silo specific kinds of effects, because the effects system we have identified that could be a source of lag. So that's another thing. The other issue that sometimes we run into for Evernight specifically, and our other European servers, is like, we'll look into lag and there's something. So all of the traffic goes across transatlantic and then comes into basically one place. And if that one place is lagging, then those people will see lag in our servers. So many times, most of the time, it's definitely our servers, but we have dealt with a number of false positives where, like, they're doing maintenance or something else is happening, and it just muddies the water. So let's see what this. So we're going to basically, our plans for that are make these configuration changes on all the things, and hopefully sometime in the winter we can start rolling out 64-bit versions of our servers, which will give the servers more memories to play with. And we definitely need to upgrade our hardware as well, and that all that provisioning behind the scenes is happening. It's just that with something this size, that provisioning is really slow. So bear with me on that. So those are the kind of steps we have, other than the small steps, is roll these configuration server changes in the short term out to other servers like next week. Hopefully we won't see any issues on Arkenstone and Landroval in the meantime. And then go get some 64-bit servers active sometime before end of year, and then provision new hardware, all the while now that our new engineers are coming up to speed, they will be able to create new perf tools and make do perf changes, not changes, but like, I apologize, I'm spacing on the word, but they will be able to look at performance, see where it might be falling down, analyze it, and we can look for actual game code changes as well.
All right, next question comes from YouTube. Haley asks, are bridles going to be made into new LIs anytime soon?
I don't think so. Not anytime soon. At some point, we're going to have to figure out what we're going to do with Rohan and making and what we're going to do with that kind of the
mounted combat in general.
Mounted combat, thank you.
Yeah.
So one of the things that we don't want to do is we don't want to make it go away, because a lot of people use their mounted combat to just get around faster. I think the mounted combat is very hard to control for newer players hitting that. And because they don't have to really master those for more than an expansion, it's hard to expect them to master those skills. So before we do anything with bridles, we really want the mounted combat system to get sort of tweaked. I don't think it'll ever get revamped, because it was basically only for Rohan. But for instance, making more like having the inertia of turning be just better up front and better as you go is something that we can play with and look at what we're going to do that. So when that work happens, and I have no promise on when that work is going to happen, then you'll probably see bridles be affected as well.
All right. I see a bunch of questions across just asking in general about our plans for customer service. We've had some delays in customer service response times, in recent weeks, and they're really just kind of asking in general what our plans are for that. So I'm going to consolidate a couple of questions and just say CS update in terms of the question. What's going on there?
The CS team lost some key members who have moved on to excellent other opportunities, and some went to engineering and such. So we just got a new CS manager, and we have agents being pulled in, 2 other agents getting pulled in to shore up, but they're coming up to speed, and 2 agents internal that are coming up to speed, and our external agents are on vacation right at this moment, 2 important ones. Bear with me. By end of next week, those full resources should be pulled in, and don't break the new CS manager on me, because he seems great, and I don't want him to, to be broken too early. We know that the CS ticketing is behind. We want it to be better, and I think that with the new setup, it should be. But yeah, we've had a rough time with CS in terms of people finding good opportunities, and we love the agents that have worked with us. And I mean, it was I can't blame them. One moved into an engineering position, for instance, which is great for them.
Yeah. All right. Next question from That Chicken 15. Any news on an update to Kinships?
That is hopefully in the plans within the next 2 years, maybe even 2022. We've been talking about it. It will be a matter of whether, what resources we can allocate it to it.
All right. Exogenesis 9 asks, what's up with Brawler next? We know that we have to work on some skill icons. That should be in the next couple of game updates, I would think. But also a little bit about the DPS. What's our plan for Brawler short term here?
So the DPS is low, and we definitely want to get it back to where it needs to be before the raid is released, hopefully before the additional instances are released, so that you don't feel bad about bringing a Brawler. I suspect that there will be some relief done in the short term, some relief done before the 6-man instances are released in the winter, and then we definitely want to have some time to do some real fine-tuning before the raid is released in the new year.
All right. Lisa asks on Facebook, will we be able to get ancient script other than breaking down old LIs? Now, you can get a little bit of ancient script right now, but do you know what our plans are to reward that? Perhaps, I think the reward track's going to offer some, right?
It's the reward track. What you're not seeing is the reward track. So basically what will happen is, as you level up, as you get XP in your LI, you'll move along the reward track, and the reward track gives you cool stuff. Runes and ancient scripts, and maybe even traceries. I don't remember specifically how often, but as you work on that and you get LI XP, the LI XP goes into the reward track. The reward track moves on and dings, and then you get things that you can apply to your LI. Don't quote me on this, but I think that the reward track, some of the reward track stuff is also account bound. So even if you are maxed out on your LI as you're playing, you can pass some of that stuff to alts or work on additional LIs. Yeah, that's the big piece you haven't seen, is basically the reward track. Your XP goes into a reward track. The reward track moves along and continues to reward you with things. And my engineers and systems people are working on that hard right now.
Yep. All right, this one from Facebook. Are there any plans to switch other classes to the Brawler model, where the Brawler released with 2 specialization trees and then a 3rd general utility tree, that being the yellow tree in this particular case? Is that sort of a portent of things to come?
I'm not going to say that it is. One of the problems that we're having right now with the classes is Most of the classes seem to have like an orphan tree that people don't use. There's two strong trees and one less. So we experimented with Brawler to see how that goes, but it's too early to say whether that's going to be long-term successful or not. Uh, I want to take a look on that and hold off on that to see how the Brawler develops. We haven't even seen the Brawler in any kind of dungeon or raid metagame before making plans to move other things to it.
All right. I see a bunch of them, so we're going to take Leopoldo's question here. Any plans on expanding the wardrobe?
We always want to do that. I mean, more wardrobe expansion is great, but how many are there right now? Like,
It's a lot, but it's never enough.
it's never enough.
Never.
Let me ask the team on that. Honestly, I wasn't planning today on answering expanding wardrobe questions, so I'm like, yeah, like it has a lot. So, but yes, if the players ask for more wardrobe, we can always look into doing that. The wardrobe isn't carried along with the character, so adding weight to that, I think it's a repository, shouldn't be an issue. If it is one of the older implementations and all that data is carried with the characters from server to server, then there may be a consideration there for our engineers who don't want to increase the weight of characters too much. So I don't remember exactly which technology the wardrobe uses.
Yeah, I'm not sure either. I think it may not be paginated. I think that may be part of the issue, but I'm not sure.
Thorough lore, we should all get moral buffs for being drunk. Not just the Brawler.
Okay.
We should probably get some in the chat too. Are you grabbing it from the chat? I'm seeing a lot of chat going.
Yes.
Okay,
yep. I'm
good.
getting YouTube. Well, these last ones were from YouTube and Facebook chat in particular. I just kind of wanted to pop over there. But let's get back to Twitch chat. This one from Nimmelzir about the gold spammers that we've been dealing with in for a little while here, where they're able to get around the ignore function of the chat servers.
Yeah, we have to fix the ignore function of the chat servers. I mean, obviously that there's some issue there, and they basically picked up right in the core development cycle of Gundabad, which makes it harder for me to move my engineers off to fixing ignore. So I'm hoping to get to that sometime before end of year, maybe early next year on the ignore. And once our CS is up, hopefully they'll be able to go and ping them as well.
I think one of the solutions as well may be an account-based ignore list. I believe that's what the current task is, having the engineers explore. So,
right.
Yeah. I have a question. Basically, this one's from YouTube. When will Brawler cosmetic gauntlets be fixed? I guess I'm not quite sure which specific gauntlets need to be fixed, but what is the plan for kind of Brawler itemization here? Do you know?
Are we talking about cosmetic? No, cosmetic they're talking about.
Yeah.
Those bugs are all in our queue, and we're trying to fix them as fast as we can leading to Gundabad and leading after Gundabad. If there are some gauntlets that, like, if none of the gauntlets are showing up, that will be a high priority bug that we will try to fix for Gundabad. If some of the gauntlets seem a little wonky, that will be something that we will fix probably after Gundabad, just knowing how queues work. So depending on the details of that is when it will get fixed. Probably before Gundabad if it's a large scale problem, and if it's a smaller scale problem, probably in the hot fixes after Gundabad when we have more time.
All right, quick bop back to the forum questions. This one from Freya Zena wants to know when we're going to get two-factor authentication.
It's on our radar right now. We'd love to do it. We have an old account system, and we want to make sure. Right now, it's pretty solid in terms of security. We want to make sure that we don't do anything to do that. So we have external people that are working, and we've started the discussion with an external vendor about adding that. We actually have an engineer that is familiar with that type of work, and so we've started the discussion with that, and we're going through pricing right now.
All right.
I wouldn't expect to see it this year. I would expect to see it next year.
Yeah. All right. Probably the last question I'm going to take from the forum thread so far. I see a couple that I can repeat from Twitch here. This one is a question about, with the recent patch, there was a fix to an issue that allowed players to level up their legendary item traceries beyond the cap of 449. Was that also intended to reduce the cap of all traceries at lower levels? Yes is the answer. I was able to look that one up prior to going live here today. I'm not going to put it in the chat, but I saw someone say, when is the update 30 Blood of Azog soundtrack going to be released? The answer to that is potentially this weekend. I actually spent some of the day yesterday uploading it to our YouTube channel, and it just getting kind of a final check from the composer, Bill Champagne. Just making sure all of her playlists is right and the songs sound good and all that sort of thing. But that's going to be within a few days, the Update 30 soundtrack. And I'll be sitting down with Bill in the coming weeks to talk a little bit about releasing the Update 31 soundtrack as well.
People are saying that we're having low frame rate.
Yeah, maybe a little bit. I'm just pushing my computer here today, and the only way I could really fix it is to drop it down from 1080p. I don't know if I want to do that. I kicked us down from...
Is it just on me or you?
Well, it's probably what happens is you're freezing a little bit when I'm bopping through different windows. That's probably what's being seen, but I would have to check.
Hey, if you want to take the blame, I'm all for that.
Yeah, I've got a decent computer, but, I'm asking a lot of it right now. And I've been trying to kick it up to 1080p, and I think that's just kind of pushing it a little bit. So, sorry about that.
All right.
Yeah.
So, let's see. Now, we missed a lot of stream chat on Twitch.
Yeah.
So, let's see. I can't go into a whole list of LI mats that won't have a trade-in on stream because we're still working through that. But our goal is that we know that there are a number of LI mats that don't currently have a way to be disenchanted or broken down into other mats, and we hope to do that. But don't expect the ability to get a whole bunch of mats from the lower levels and turn them into valuable high-level stuff. One of our goals specifically is that you don't have to do that. They should provide some value, but we don't want you to feel as though you have to grind the low-level content right now in order to get those to get use out of them.
I see a question that I'll have to follow up on after the stream with QA. Some people reporting that the binding status after slotting essences is different than what they were expecting. I will have to look into that.
I'm pretty sure that's a bug. I saw that too. And I think that what ends up happening is it goes from bound to account to bound to character. And that's a bug that we'll be looking at after we finish the rewards track.
I see a question asking about EU servers. We've answered this a couple of times, I believe, on these streams, but what is our thought on European-specific servers?
Yeah.
Or having EU-specific servers.
That would be great, except that now we're dividing our sort of maintenance into two different things with our small team. Hopefully, now that we're part of a bigger company, that is something that we can explore in the future, but I really don't have any news on that. Yep. We know that the champions probably will need to also be played with for co-founding Chaos. We know that the weapon swapping really hit them maybe the hardest of all, so there'll probably be some additional work that we have to look at leading into the dungeons. We want to make sure that they also are up to speed, because I know that they got hit by that. They were really depending on the weapon swapping to get some buffs up, so we definitely want to touch them.
All right, this question comes from our Facebook chat. What about River Hobbits? We answered that one question at that one PAX East, and it's kind of dogged us ever since. So what's the deal with River Hobbits?
That will likely be the next new race we do.
Oh yeah? Okay.
Unless the team suddenly gets some massive inspiration. We definitely want to do it. And so I would expect that to be like, that'll be a nice big beat for something coming up next year. Will be an inclusion of a new kind of Hobbit race, new rigging and some additional animations. It would be super cool.
Uh, I'm gonna guess this is really more of a question for Fantus than you. But over on Facebook, someone wanting to know, are we going to have PvP traceries along with that new gear? Do you know, or if there's any plan to do that?
There's no plan to do that right now. That's a fine idea, but like, let's get through getting our traceries in order for the PvE before we start doing that. In fact, one of the things we'll probably have to do is look at how the traceries affect the PvP balance as it is. So, but I mean, that's a great idea. I don't think that we don't have any current specific plans to do that as we look at PvMP.
All right, let me pop this one about the reward track. This one from Maragon over in Twitch. When is that reward track coming out? Do we know?
For Gundabad is the current plan.
Yeah.
So when Gundabad goes live, your reward track should be there. If there's some tech issue, then at worst, in a patch shortly after Gundabad. But ideally, we want you to be playing through Gundabad and earning the legendary XP during that gameplay, and getting kick-ass rewards. So that our current plan is, when Gundabad goes live, so will the reward track. But please, like, I'm gonna have to send cookies to my engineers.
This one I know we've addressed in previous streams as well, but might as well ask it again here. Mr. Alexman13P wants to know about the old LI cosmetics. When we got rid of the third age items and some of the old things like that, a whole bunch of things got kind of deprecated, as it were.
If you're worried about having the look of an old LI, eventually after Gundabad is shipped, we'll have to go through and see what looks no longer exist and allow the players to earn them as cosmetics somehow, maybe turning their old allies into that, or having them available during a festival if you have the LI, or maybe even if you don't have the LI. We definitely don't want those looks to get lost.
Mm-hmm. So I guess we'll ask Druid's Fire's question here. This one was also on the forums about retroactively granting players who finished the epic story gold traceries in particular. I checked with the team before this, and there is not a plan to do that. Some of the rewards that you're getting are from the will be equivalent with deconstruction of your LIs for completing the old epic, or the existing epics rather. But I recognize it doesn't do gold. And we're not doing kind of gold rewards for the older epic completions that you've done prior to 31.
The reason we're not doing that is the whole point of this, like one of the big selling points, one of the big cool things about the system is that you don't need it, because moving forward, you would have been replacing those traceries anyway. So when you go into let's say that we did a whole bunch of extra work to do that, and then you go into Gundabad and start finding new ones, and you're immediately replacing them anyway. We would rather move forward and have the traceries strong moving forward, because as soon as you start doing any new content, and all the traceries that you're finding are replacing your old traceries. And yeah, there may be some overlap where if you're a kick-ass raider and you got the top traceries for a short amount of time in the beginning of a new expansion, you're going to be kicking butt because your traceries are actually better than the base traceries that are dropping. That's kind of sort of intended in the plan, but eventually as you get back to the new level cap, you're going to be replacing the traceries. So going back and giving gold traceries for something that are just going to get replaced in the next few months, you know what I mean, is not really the time, is not really a thing that we want to do right now. I would rather have the people be looking forward to getting the gold traceries from the content that's upcoming.
You will also not have to run that epic story, when update 31 comes out, so you'll be able to go straight into Gundabad. So I guess it's true that, some folks who are a little bit behind on the epic will get that initial gold tracery potential reward, but then they'll be moving into Gundabad. You're already there getting better traceries.
Yeah, that's that is the design.
Yeah. Yep.
All right. There are runes to increase your tracery levels. I think they may be dropping small, but really the big place to get your runes is the reward track that we're talking about. So the reason you're not getting a lot of runes right now is because the reward track isn't in. We're just trying to get the people to be accustomed to the system, and then you'll start getting runes once Gundabad comes out and the reward track is in, and you're getting XP for your LI, and then the runes will be dropping as the reward track goes on, and that's why you haven't seen rewards yet. That's why you haven't seen runes yet.
This came up last week, and I remember answering it on the show a little bit last week about Lua support. But what is our plan for Lua support?
So we're right now working on getting started on the graphics upgrade that we've been talking about. We're basically building a team, an external and internal team. Those things have started. So part of the 4K, part of making our game work well on 4K monitors and having scaling and having better scaling UI will be revisiting the API development. So the reason I don't want to talk about the Lua and the API right now is because it may be that we just extend Lua. It may be that we completely change, how we're doing things. And I don't want to tie the hands of the engineers that are looking into this issue, since we're currently in the exploration phase of basically the graphics update.
All right. Squirrel asks, this person is asking when would after Gundabad start, but I think there was an earlier question about basically what's the plan after Gundabad.
So after Gundabad, obviously we have to put out more dungeon content and then the raid early next year. And then we want to have a kick-ass festival, and then we have updates where we have updates coming, next year that we're formulating plans for. We know that ahead of us is maybe a new race. One of the things that we've been talking about, but in the future, is crafting updates. We'd like to revamp the crafting if we can get the resources for that. We'd like to revamp the kinships and make that cooler. Including, more stuff for your kinship housing. So that's something that we want to do. The other systems are too early in development for me to talk about because people will latch onto them, and then when they don't come out because they weren't really feasible, people will yell at me. Yeah. So I fall into that trap many times, and I will again, but I'm not going to right now.
I'm going to repeat this question essentially because we answered it earlier in the stream, and I see it come up a little bit. What's the deal with Belaguer and lag in general on the worlds?
So we already talked about lag. I'll let people watch. Belaguer had some issue. One of our VMs just failed, right, and is throwing errors, and TechOps is moving them out of the array of kind of server pieces in Belaguer, and that's what we're looking at right now. The problem is when you move something out, there's fewer resources for it, so we have to swap something back in. That's an ongoing thing that we're dealing with right now. There was some kind of hardware failure on one of our VMs.
Yeah.
All right.
This one is from YouTube. We can ask that. We introduced Hersig in recent content updates, and Aaron would like to know, what about more female-looking dwarf faces, hair, and character models?
One of the things we are looking at is additional character options for a wide variety of players. That is something that won't be ready for Gundabad, but will be coming after it, maybe New Year, maybe beginning of New Year. So you'll see more hairs and more face options and for a variety of races. And I believe that there will be additional. So all dwarves can basically have their hair however they want, and those you should have different options for making your male or female dwarf look the way you want. I mean, we'll never have enough options. We all want infinite options, but we are working on another pass to add a diverse number of options for that.
And this one, I think, particularly is focusing a little bit more on feminine presenting dwarves, which, historically has not really been something we've had as a character option. So,
I mean, I think I saw some cool options on concept art, but I also haven't seen the culled concept art that we're going to do. But yeah, so like the dwarves will get we'll hopefully get new options.
All right. A couple of wish list style questions. This one from Stefan on Facebook. Will there be any work done on skirmish rewards? It was said skirmishes would be a good way of getting items for new legendary items, but so far that has not been proven true in this person's opinion.
Yeah, I know. So one of the things that the systems team has kicked ass on is they took on both Brawler and the new LI system at the same time. And so they're working really hard to go through and get LIs in shape and get the rewards in shape. And then post-Gundabad, we will probably be revisiting some of the places in the, in backlogged of putting traceries and such in. I imagine that one of the discussions will be, what do we do with skirmishes? In fact, I've already heard that discussion. I just don't have the answer. So I would expect that post-Gundabad, you will see some discussion on that, and that we will be looking at what will drop in skirmishes. I think it's a tech issue right now. I think one of the problems we ran into is that we couldn't get the rewards to drop at the levels that we wanted to. And so you do a skirmish at a certain level and get traceries at the wrong level. And there was some tech issue that was causing that. So that's something that we have to look at, if I remember correctly.
All right. Another sort of wish listy style suggestion from Elon Tier. Can we remove PvP VIP gating on the free players side? And then, crack down on rank farming too.
I don't have an answer to that. That's a fine idea. We can look at that to try to get more freeps, if that will help. So we can look at that. I don't know. I have to look at our VIP plans with the team before I comment on that. Sorry, now we're in. I don't want to tie the team's hands on VIP rewards and advantages.
Mm-hmm. Related a little bit, another kind of suggestion. Hadur would like to see us get a trait point tracker in the deed log. That way you could kind of get a sense of where you're progressing on, say, like class trait points, things like that.
So in terms of UI, I think there's a lot of UI changes. So this would be far down the list. Right now, we need the revamp to the quest system. We need more quests showing on your quest. We need the important quests to stay on the top, like your epic quest. Right now you can get side quests that actually drop your epic quest off the tracker, which means that newer players cut out. When you open the map, it takes up the whole screen. So there's a lot of quests. There's a lot of UI revamp that we want to do to make the game better, and hopefully that will come with the 4K upgrade. So yeah, that's going to be part. Once we do, part of upgrading the graphics of Lotro is also shoring up some of the UI stuff that to make it better. Are we reading questions?
Yeah, I'm trying to find a question that I think we can answer. A lot of wish list stuff, which I appreciate. It's always nice to have people offer great suggestions, but saying can we do X, Y, or Z? It's a little dangerous because you don't want to make promises, right?
Right.
So, like for example, would we ever release a flying mount?
We don't have any plans to release flying mounts. Yeah. The closest thing that we would have, which would be a tremendous amount of work, is something where you could basically do a point-to-point flying mount. Like I could see us someday having a mount where you actually get to be on an eagle and then fly from point A to point B, much like our mount system works now, and actually have a camera fly through as you're on the eagle. That would be super cool. But like that, the amount of tech for what you would get from that would be a lot. But if you're asking, will you have flying mounts that you can just freely go through the game? No, it just wouldn't. It wouldn't. The whole epic story has a lot to do with traveling and survival, and circumventing that by flying around would be something that I don't think that we do. If you do end up on something that flies, it has to be super epic, like it was in the books.
Over on Facebook, we've got someone who's struggling getting a purchase completed of Gundabad. Make sure you do have a ticket in. You can do that through help.standingstonegames.com. Send it into account support, and they should be able to address your concern, your purchasing issue if they can address it, which they should be able to.
You will get more information on the old LI stuff that will be done. Maybe I would hold on to it right now until Gundabad launches and they have a chance to go for that. Now, hopefully, part of that will be answered, or many of those questions will be answered for Gundabad, but probably not all of them, because the systems team has so much on its plate.
All right, from YouTube here, Jason asks, what's our feeling about the release of Brawler? There's been a lot of feedback about consolidating the various cooldowns, increasing damage, things like that. Basically, how do we feel about how it went out, and how do we feel about it going forward here in the short term?
Okay, so thematically, I think the design is fun. I think the animations hit out of the park. It feels good to punch people. The particle effects, I think the art team did great, and I think that the systems team did great about the overall design of it. I think that one of the things we do have to do is the DPS is too low. You know, there will be some cooldown balance stuff as we go forward, especially looking at the dungeons. So I think the base is super strong and super good. And I think, you know, the fine tuning, like any class, will happen coming forward. We'll do a fine tuning pass for the dungeons that will be that will address some of these, but not all of them, and then we'll look at how they're doing in the dungeons, and then make more changes for when the raid is released.
All right, from Twitch here, let's ask Kara1224's question. This is a new player, also welcome. Also understand maybe a first-time viewer to Twitch here as well, so welcome twice. Are we ever going to do anything about falling damage? Right now you can take some pretty severe falling damage, and also track more than 5 quests.
All right, tracking more than 5 quests is something that we all want more. Part of the graphics update also will include, you know, some modest changes to questing. Tracking more than 5 quests is high on our radar, keeping your epic quests at the top. I may even make the argument that your epic quest doesn't count for, even if we increase the quest to 10 or even 20, the epic quest doesn't count against that. So you always have the epic quest at the top, and it doesn't eat up some of those slots. Is something I'd like to see. For falling damage, you know, it's pretty generous right now, because the first falling damage just basically hamstrings you. So you limp along, which I almost dislike more. Over that, I think one of the reasons that we don't want to mess with falling damage too much is there may be zones where the players can get to places, and if they can survive a greater fall, get to places where they shouldn't be able to get to. So we have to be careful before messing with that.
I was actually in historical Azanul Bazaar recently doing some questing, and I managed to get all the way down from like the top of the cliff to the ground. I probably shouldn't be saying this because I don't think the designers would have been too happy, but I managed to do it and survive, just kind of bouncing off the walls carefully. So, you know, I both feel that pain, but I also know it can be done.
Yeah, I don't know that any of us really like the falling limp, or at least make you be able to fall a little further before you do the limp. But there needs to be some kind of disincentive for just jumping off things, you know, whenever you want.
All right. Question from Bell Navarre on Twitch. Gundabad looks huge and epic. Thank you very much. What are you most excited about with the expansion?
I don't want to talk about specific stuff because I don't want to spoil. I think there's a lot of exciting pits. We're getting good feedback from this, and I haven't seen it. So there's a new instance that has gone in the test server where there's some weird stuff happening in there, and I'm really excited about that. I think it's very different for the design team. I think that Tim has kind of done a cool thing, and the feedback early. So I kind of want to check that out, which I haven't been able to because it's hard during the test cycle for me to get into group content. So that's one thing that I think would be cool. I think obviously Brawler, LI stuff is like. The systems team, I can't tell you how much work they've done to get LI and Brawler at the same time. It's just a tremendous amount of work, especially some of the scoping was just like, we just didn't, as we dug down deep and we were knee deep into like what it would take to change the entire back end of the game to come up to speed on LI, there were some things that we just underestimated the time it would take. So I think that I'm excited to see the LI, but at some point we need to do it because in the past we've been tentative about taking on big systems tasks because we knew that there would be a time when we would go and find stuff like this. But I think that they finally were like, look, we've promised the LI system for a long time. We're going to do this. And like they did, like the LI revamp and Brawler both went out at the same time. That's probably the two biggest systems we've done as SSG, and having them go out at the same time is tremendous for a team of this size. So I'm excited. I'm just excited for that.
I'm going to toss a bit of an easy softball to you, although I know we can't say what yet. Kolkalad asks, is there a concrete plan for a new premium housing area?
No. I mean, yes, in the back of my mind, but like concrete is super no. I'm going to say for concrete, no. And we've had some awesome ideas about different things we're going to do, but yeah, I don't want to get into those.
I've heard internally a little bit of thoughts on that too. So I don't want to spoil anything. So yeah. Okay. Just my question or my thought on the story of Gundabad as well. It's worth mentioning that the fate of Gundabad wraps up in many ways our Legacy of Durin and the Trials of the Dwarf storyline that we've been doing for quite a while. So in terms of my personal excitement, we've been building up what I personally feel is a pretty good story here, and that story is going to be hitting some big beats as they were here in a couple of weeks. So I'm personally very excited about that. So
yeah, it'll be interesting because the wrap up of the Legacy of Durin and the Dwarves.
Yeah, Legacy of Durin and the Trials of the Dwarves.
And the Trials of the Dwarves. That's
yes.
it. It will be. That's a big epic story that we're doing that is kind of talking about things that aren't directly in the books. Like the wrap up of this is a big deal for us because this is our first epic story that is kind of our epic. You know what I mean? And what we hope is that like it touches upon things from the books. It feels authentic to the books, and that it feels authentic to Tolkien's world. That's a big responsibility that the team is taking on in doing that and presenting that to you. So like they're super excited about having Gundabad offer that satisfying ending.
Question from YouTube, Ybear, any plans to do a making of behind the scenes stream in the future? I brought that in to lob my own promo here. Yes, as a matter of fact, next week at 2 p.m. Eastern, right here on twitch.tv/LotraStream, and it'll be uploaded to YouTube later, we've got Scenario, who's going to be doing a landscape look at Gundabad. That's part of his casual stroll with Scenario behind the scenes landscape sort of streams that he does, usually about maybe once-ish a month. once every 4 or 6 weeks, something like that. But yeah, next Wednesday, as a matter of fact, 2 p.m. Eastern on Twitch, we're going to be looking at Gundabad. Doesn't get much more behind the scenes than that.
So I was made aware that we found some Gundabad performance thing where one item that's used in a whole bunch of places was causing performance problems, and we actually found out why that was and fixed it. But I don't know whether that made it into the latest Gundabad. So if you have done previous internal Gundabad stuff and it seemed to, hurt your performance, we have found the problem where we were seeing performance issues graphically in internal Gundabad. So hopefully, if the timing works out, that will help fix the problem that you're talking about. That's for a list of them. Let's see, new instruments. I'd love to have new instruments. That's something that we're always looking to do. Yes, that is that someone else. And they're talking, yep. Great. So the fix isn't on board yet. So some of your performance problems internally we have identified and fixed. So I'm not. What else?
Yeah. So Sampay22 asked, this one is, again, probably more of a question for me than you. Let me quick look something up, and I can actually answer it. Sampay22 asks, any plan to bring back the Curator? The answer to that is yes, and very soon, and I can get you the date here in just a second. That is... The Curator will be arriving next week. That would be October 25th, starting at 10 a.m. Eastern, and will be available through November 1st, being shut off on November 2nd at 3 a.m. Eastern. And that's going to actually make it into the Lotro Beacon later today as well. But yes, the Curator Figment Vendor will be available next week, as a matter of fact, starting on the 25th at 10 a.m. Eastern Time.
We probably will never have a system that will allow you to easily change actual in-game gear with a click, because changing gear is actually pretty expensive. Vitor
over on YouTube asks, let me see if I can pop that in. What is our plan for Relics and Shards? Do you know? The old Relics and Shards, are we going to... What the conversion plan is for that? Are we going to see a conversion? It's not for Update 31, kind of wasn't planned for Update 31.
Sometime post Gundabad. Maybe some of that will be done Gundabad. We will be offering plans to have those basically broken down into current materials. If they're old, you're not going to get new LI materials. If they're older, you probably won't get end game LI materials. You may get stuff that is usable for older LIs and level banded, but that's not even in stone. So hold on to them, and we will have some of that work done for Gundabad, and some of that work done post-Gundabad, depending on how stuff is going. We want to make sure that the reward track is in, and that the Gundabad experience is great going forward as well. So,
Elentier asks a question about removing clouds that are causing some performance issues for their client. I believe that is in part covered by the frills work that went in earlier this year. I think some of those clouds will actually be removed if you reduce your frills there. If you need to.
Any plans to make other classes trait trees similar to the Brawler? We talked about that earlier. Let's see how the Brawler does first. Like I said earlier, I know that some of the perception is some of the classes have a tree that is less used than the other two, which is why we're experimenting with Brawler. But we have a long time to see how Brawler fits into the meta before we make decisions on the classes.
Mm-hmm. Do we have any plans for Shadowfax? Shadowfax, was part of our fast and slow kind of worlds, and the people have to some extent spoken and said that they like Treebeard. Treebeard has higher pops than Shadowfax. We're going to do anything about that? Is what Sherwinnicus wants to know.
Right now, Shadowfax will continue going on the way it is.
Yep.
At some point, the population is equal to one of our smaller servers. It's not huge. Treebeard seems to be the bigger one. People like wandering around aimlessly in our landscape because it's so gorgeous. So
yeah, Treebeard is that was part of the experiment here, right? Is to see what
right.
players would prefer, and it was not 50-50, shall we say, right? So
yeah, so we'll keep moving on Shadowfax. Shadowfax is not by any means the lowest population server currently, I don't believe, but it was less popular than Treebeard certainly, but we will continue and move ahead at the increased speed, and then you can get through Mordor and experience the game super fast.
We've already asked about the Stone of the Tortoise. Matt wants to know that we can't give an official statement on this, but do you have any idea if Lotro's going to work on the Steam Deck? I don't actually know the answer to that one myself.
We have gotten a lot of fixes to Steam recently.
Yeah.
So that you can get it on Steam. But I don't know that we're going to go and start adding stuff in-game for Steam at this time. Because I think the problem is that we're using an older API for them, and so we'd have to update the whole game to use a newer Steam API. But Don't quote me on that. I know many things about the tech of the game, but Steam is unfortunately not one of them that I've done.
This came up this week on the other game side as well about the Steam Deck, which is that kind of new portable device that Valve is releasing, at some point within a year here or so. When I looked at the specs of the Steam Deck, it seemed like both Dungeons & Dragons Online and Lotro should theoretically be able to run on it. Now, I was of the impression the Steam Deck was Linux only, and we don't have a Linux-supported client in Steam or elsewhere. But then someone corrected me on stream last week saying that the Steam Deck will, in fact, actually run Windows 10. So theoretically, if it runs Windows 10 and has the specs to support our game client, it should theoretically run. But that's anything but an official statement about whether it's going to be playable or not, right? So, yeah.
Yeah. So making the festival stuff depends on the festival things. I'm surprised that the Hobby gift pets are account bound. I think we were worried about accounts being hacked and then the pets being sold off, because originally we wanted all of those to be able to be tradable. So let me look into the reason for that. I'd like to revamp crafts. One of the things I'd like to do in our crafting update is that your character can take all the crafts if they want. You're not just limited to 3. You basically, go through each crafting, and if you want it, you're made to have all your crafting, but every crafting after 3 will be more and more expensive to update because you're spending your time. But if you want to do crafting on one character, you can, but you're still benefiting to have crafting alts. We want to have our cake and eat it too there. I don't want to kill crafting alts, but I also want the main to do. And I'd also like to add more crafts, but because I think players like gathering materials and making stuff, but it's hard because it's hard coming up with a lot of cool stuff to make. You know what I mean?
We've pretty much run out of time here, so I don't want to keep you too much longer here. I know you do have work to do this afternoon, as do I. But do we have kind of any final question that we might want to ask here that we can actually have something of substance?
Oh, gee, it's 107, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not really seeing an immediate question that I can think of here that would be a good one to cap the show out. So maybe I should ask my own. What's our plans for a producer's letter? We have a producer's letter that'll, Gundabad comes out November 10th here. We're going to be doing, obviously, post-release support. We've got the Yuletide Festival happening in December, along with the raid happening, as you mentioned, in the kind of earlier part of the new year. What's sort of the short-term plan here for Lotro?
The producer's letter will come out late January, I imagine. After we get past the new year, we'll start looking at like what we want to say and what we want to do. We'll be finalizing the plans for at least most of 2022 will be finalized by then, and we'll be looking into 2023, and you can expect it end of January, maybe a little longer depending on how long it takes to do localization and such.
Great. All right. Well, thank you so much, Sev, for joining me here on the show today. I really do appreciate it. And I want to thank everyone on Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook for asking a ton of questions, a lot of great questions, and for being here in general for us here both on the live stream for these Q&As and as players of the Lord of the Rings Online. I did want to mention for anyone who wants to, make sure to spread the word about lotro.com/getready. Lotro.com/getready. We got a coupon code to get you all currently available adventure packs for free, big capital letters. Lotro Quests 2021 is the coupon code. Lotro Quest 2021 is the coupon code, and you've got through the end of November to redeem that. So please do redeem that for one, and also spread the word to any friends in your circle who might be interested in checking the game out. So, all right, thank you very much, Sev, for joining me.